Welcome back to the channel, Kanekis. I hope you're all doing well. I am joined by a very special guest once again on the channel, Lynette Zang. She is back to talk about the war in the Middle East and also stablecoins. There's quite a lot we need to cover that we didn't touch on last time. But for those of you who may have missed that conversation, Lynette is a former banker and broker, and now she's the founder and CEO of Zang International, where her team of experts discuss sound money strategies with clients to help people prepare for the oncoming uncertainty in the economy. So, Lynette, thank you very much for giving us your time once again.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, let's start with the hot topic at the moment, the ongoing war in the Middle East and Iran between the US, Russia, and Iran themselves. Did this all come as a surprise to you, or was it pretty much par for the course considering your experience with currency life cycles?
Right. No, this was really all par for the course. I mean, remember, we need a big crisis. This is not the only war that's going on,
Yeah.
but it is ramping up, and it is a great excuse to point a finger and say, see, we're not really creating the inflation. It's the war,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Uh-huh.
an excuse, though.
I mean, M2 is always increasing. You can see it on usdebtclock.org. And I mean, it goes up at a rate of, I think, 1.8 million per minute, which is insane. It's
Well, it is
insane.
insane. But when all you have to do is push a button to create money, fiat money, it's not real
Yep.
money, then it's easy to do. And the system is dependent upon that liquidity.
It's ridiculous. And I mean, it's perfect timing, this meeting, because today the PPI, it came out, the producer price index, and it came out at 6% year over year, 1.4% month over month. When you analyze that 1.4 is actually 16.8%, which is which is quite incredible. But they want us to believe, it's the oil price, when in reality, like we just said, M2 keeps increasing. And we know this is going to hit people. And I just wanted to hear your initial thoughts on this figure.
Well, quite honestly, number one, it's probably significantly higher than that because they massage and jury rig the formulas.
Yep.
But I don't think we've seen the last of it. And with the producer prices, that still has to trickle down to the normal people. And
Yep.
the normal people are just really struggling with what's happening. So, recently within the last few weeks, we've seen the lowest uh, consumer sentiment numbers since they started tracking back in 52. And that is significant to me because
Mm.
this is a Ponzi scheme and it requires new money. So your M2 constantly going up. Yeah, more debt, more of the fiat money, but
Mhm.
it also requires confidence because the stuff that they're creating has literally no value. It costs nothing to create. And the difference between the stated value, the face value, and the cost of creation is what the Fed lives on. But the reality is, go on the purchasing power chart, and the Federal Reserve tells you the true fundamental value of this stuff is zero, just
Yep.
like this $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. It has no value at all, but it does have a lot of zeros there.
I mean, and now it's digital, right? So they can just press it at the press of a button, and voila, new currency.
Really? Woo!
New
Isn't that
currency.
great? The problem is that the easier and faster and cheaper it is to create that new fiat money, the more of it gets created and it goes to those on the top of the K-shaped recovery first when it has the highest level of purchasing power. And by the time it trickles down to you and me, well, the moment it comes into our hands, it still has the highest level of purchasing power at that moment, right? I mean, by design, you look at inflation. Inflation is telling you that the value of that crap that they keep printing is going to zero. And we're very close to that now. But sound money, that's physical gold and physical silver, That's above all governments and central banks' ability to inflate away simply because it is full utility. 33 different global users of physical gold, 36 different global users of physical silver. How many areas of the global economy is this stuff used in? Or even, the cryptocurrencies? One. One. So I don't know. Take your pick. You want 33, 36, or you want one?
And it's interesting you've brought in crypto because I mean we've seen the recent push for digital currencies, and there's actually something I really wanted to run by you. I'm not sure how much you track, the UK government's antics, but recently the government in power, they're called Labour, and they came up with this. I think I'm fine to call it manifesto. They came up with this manifesto or plan for financial services, and within it they said, and I quote, they plan to advance ongoing work to create a UK central bank digital currency. And it goes on further to explain. Labour recognises the growing case for a state-backed digital pound to protect the integrity and sovereignty of the Bank of England and the UK's financial and monetary system. Now, Lynette, please, could you help me to explain why do they need to create a digital pound to protect the sovereignty and integrity, if the Bank of England even has any? Why do they need to create it?
Well, the sovereignty, forget the integrity. The central bankers have no integrity. But the sovereignty is to maintain their money monopoly. They've done such a great job for you and me. Why would we allow that to happen? So, the fight is to get redeemable gold back in the global monetary system, whether it's the UK or the US or anywhere else in the world, because otherwise you've got these, basically, for lack of a better word, I mean, they're not exactly dictators, but they are. They're dictating the value of what we have to work for. And the reality is, I mean, I do love US physical bills a lot, simply because they're more honest. What does it say? Yep. Federal Reserve note. And so even though people never think about this, you can see quite clearly that we're working for corporate debt, because the Federal Reserve, just like the Bank of England, just like any central bank globally, they are a private corporation. They're not a government entity. And a note is a debt instrument. And so once people really realize that they're working for corporate debt, then they kind of go, well, wait a minute, that makes no sense. So a lot of my goal is to help educate people on that. And you can see, this is, let's see, is this the early one? Okay, this is the one that they issued when we still, prior to 1971, the bill that they issued prior to when Nixon closed the gold window and confiscated gold from the rest of the world. Why did they let them get away with that? I really don't know. But this is the one that they minted afterward. And you can see, don't they look alike?
They do.
Right. So, hey, nothing has changed in the monetary system, when in reality, everything had changed in the monetary system. That's what they're doing again with the digital system, and that's why it goes back to your question, why would they have to issue a digital currency? Because this actually puts restrictions on how much they can attack the principal. Because even though this is a debt instrument, it neither pays you interest nor overtly charges you interest. It does the inflation interest because it's created from debt. And so, you got interest on it. But they're losing control of that, just like the gold created restrictions for the government. So once it got more expensive than whatever that stated face was, they had to get rid of the gold from the system. Now they have to get rid of the paper that puts those limitations on. In a digital system, the government says, once we're in a fully digital system, we can do lifetime taxes. We have no limitations. And I mean, you have no access. They have full access to you, whatever you're holding in the system, and whatever you earn will go directly into the system. And for the central banks, they say once we're in a fully digital system, there will be no limitations to how low we could push interest rates, which means negative interest rates, which then attacks the principal.
And just so the audience is aware, negative interest rates, they're basically stealing from you. Let's call it let's call it what it is. Just so that they're aware. Because I mean, if the price of oil can go negative, which it did during the pandemic, why wouldn't they send interest rates negative? It's within their power, isn't it?
Well, actually, Powell had come out and said, negative interest rates are a choice. A choice, because you're going to work your butt off. You're going to save this that is getting inflated away anyway, and then you're going to loan it to somebody else and accept less money than what you gave them to begin with. Inflation made that happen anyway. We talked about inflation. So the inflation numbers came out today, and then they looked at the impact of those inflation numbers on the average wage. Yep. Well, people are making less and less, even though on their paycheck it doesn't look like it. But if it spends less and less and less, what good does it do you? But the digital system would give the central bankers the ability to rob you of your principal. And you're right. Let's call it what it is. Inflation is theft. It's also a confiscation. People say they can't confiscate, or they wouldn't do it again, right in the face of them doing it constantly. High flippin' design. So inflation is a confiscation, taxation is a confiscation. The taking us into a fully digital system, now you lost your freedom. Yeah. It completely takes your freedom away, because of everything you have is inside of the system. And they say jump, you got to say how high.
How high. And you've touched on a very great point, because in the live stream you did yesterday on your channel, you mentioned a really nice anecdote about the discussions they had when they were creating this system. Corporations and wanted to pay people less, governments wanted to tax people more. I was hoping you could repeat that for my audience, just so they're aware of it, because it was absolutely brilliant the way you told it.
Oh, thank you so much. And by the way, if you want any of those links so that you can read it yourself, please, I'm very happy to send them. But, years later, after they have these discussions, when they're starting things, that you actually have access to the documents, who goes in and reads them. But when they were setting up the system back in the early 1900s, what they actually said is again, governments want to tax the people, but if they have to go through legislation, well, then you know about it and you might not be so cooperative and agreeable. If, however, the inflation robs you and does the taxation, you don't know it, so you don't do anything about it or stop it. For corporations, they wanted to pay you less, but they knew if you were used to getting $10, you would not accept $5. However, if they could make that $10 spend like $5 and they got the rest of that purchasing power. And so that was by design. And this is the evil part. They said, if people have to work harder to maintain their current standard of living, they have less time to pay attention to what we are doing. I hate these guys. I truly hate these guys. Why in the world do they think that they have the right to abuse us? So let's take our power back. If we do nothing, if we don't demand redeemable gold back in the system, if we just roll over and accept a new digital system, You have to understand that you are accepting slavery. I haven't seen one thing that governments or central banks have done that actually puts the public's interest first.
That's a very good point. That is a very good point. So very recently I did an interview with Dr. Mark Thornton. I know you did one with him as well. Phenomenal professor. And we talked about how anything that's good comes from the ground up as opposed to from top down. And just when you said that, they don't work in the interests of the people, it's phenomenal because gold and silver, it started out in the general public, and then the governments took over and they said, okay, we'll validate the authenticity for you so that you can be sure it's guaranteed by the government. But now, with the way it's working, it seems like with everything you've just said, it seems like they're intentionally trying to steal from us so that they can keep us unaware and, subservient to them with
Yeah.
benefits, social security, and we will always be in need of their services. Is that really the game plan? Am I, hitting the spot right here in terms of my analysis? Or
Well, you are, although the problem with pay-as-you-go systems like Social Security is that, in the beginning of these social services, they had plenty of people. There were something, don't hold me to this, but I'll be pretty close. I'm pretty sure there were 159 workers for every one beneficiary recipient. Now, magically, they can't bring that current. So the most current data that I've seen is that there are 2 workers for every one recipient. That math doesn't work out well. And when they had excess here in the US, well, the government borrowed it and spent it and left a whole bunch of IOUs. So even back in 2010, as the baby boomers, and I'm the tail end of that generation, as the baby boomers were starting to retire, we were already running deficits in there. And we
wow.
have fewer people coming and paying into the program. So they've made people very, very dependent upon the system. And that's really for control. They've turned us all into debt slaves, whether you have overt debt that you know of. And a lot of people do. A lot of people these days are borrowing money for food to pay their families or for
Yeah.
utilities to keep the lights on, and you're never getting out of debt. And that's something that was greatly encouraged. And there's a part of me that goes, but why? Because we're at a point now inside of the system where those that are, the lower wage earners, they are really stretched. I don't think you can stretch them any further. Honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen the public confidence sink to all-time lows, right? So when people get to that point, though, here's the thing.
Mhm.
That's a revolution.
France.
That's
France
a
will love it again.
revolution.
Yeah.
And it's about time that we had a revolution. I want it to be peaceful and quiet just by converting your garbage fiat money that's losing value into sound money. We have to take the money monopoly away from these guys. We have to. If
I
we
mean,
don't,
if you think about it, it really is the highest form of activism in today's day and age. Because think of, okay, for example, if people don't like a war that's going on, or they can save long term in gold and silver, because firstly, it reduces the supply of silver that's used in missiles, and also it means that the governments can inflate the purchasing power away from them, so they're keeping more of their wealth, and governments would have to, borrow their way to oblivion. And then that way at least it brings the war to an end instead of supporting the activities with the wars. So it's like, okay, if anyone is an activist out there, we should be encouraging them. Maybe don't go to the streets first because they have all the surveillance techniques now. Instead, they could actually purchase gold and silver as their way to fight back against the system.
That's it. We vote with our wallets. We vote with
Precisely.
our purses. And there are so many different ways that you can accumulate gold and silver, regardless of how much of this fiat stuff that you have, because it's not just the coinage that's real. It's, you see, I always wear jewelry. Well, guess
Yep.
what? That's gold and that's silver. I have all of this flatware, right? This is all sterling silver. It's 92.5% pure. So, there's all different ways that people can accumulate. But I also have to say that coming together in community on a global basis, absolutely. Demand, if we can get 3% of the global population to own gold and silver, I think we have a real shot at getting it back in the global monetary system. And therefore, the people take their power back. But locally, because as we're seeing, the biggest issue for most people during these transitions is food. And it's ridiculous. In this world of plenty, nobody should be hungry. No, not a child, not an adult should go to bed hungry.
Yeah.
But yet, so the mantra is making sure, and this is what local community can do for each one of us. You want to make sure you have surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, which for me is primarily silver, but not only silver. Wealth preservation, which for me is primarily gold, but not only gold. Community, which is arguably the most valuable gold and silver that you can do. And shelter. If we come together in local community and we all just bring the gifts that we have, because I can guarantee you, every single person on this planet, every single one has a gift that they can share. And that's what makes us stronger together. And then we're stronger than those 1%ers that are in power that have been abusing us our entire lives. Go on the purchasing power of the consumer dollar in the FRED, Federal Reserve Education Department. Put your birthday in the search bar and you'll see how much. And then think about it wherever you are in the world. Because fortunately, we do have the Fred publishing that data. How accurate it is, meh. It's something, right? It's something.
Yeah.
And then you look at how other currencies are valued against the dollar. You can go into any currency exchange site. I happen to use xe.com, but you can use any of them. It doesn't matter. And pick whatever currency you want and do it against the US dollar, do it against the spot silver contract, and do it against the spot gold contract. And frankly, that tells you everything you need to know, because you're seeing how the US dollar is losing value. So if the other currency is losing value against the US dollar on top of that, it's a double whammy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you touched on food there. And it's something I wanted to discuss with you, energy as well, because with this ongoing war, we're seeing fertilizer supply, tank, and as a result of that, the prices are increasing. Farmers all over the world are talking about how people should expect lower produce because they don't have the fertilizer to grow as many crops. Are there any practical ways people can secure their food, the food supply? Maybe outside of supermarkets, because those will be subject to.
Absolutely. It's not supermarkets anyway. Number one, you touched on fertilizer. I happen to, in my little urban farm here in the middle of a city, I actually am growing sugarcane.
Nice.
I actually have ponds with fish in them. Well, the sugarcane you can boil down into molasses, and then the next stage beyond that is fertilizer. the ponds where my fish poop and the ducks poop and the chickens poop, right? That's all fertilizer. So, anybody can grow and you don't need a big space to do it. And you can be living in an apartment, and if you can just put a little tower in a corner with a grow light on it and a fish tank attached to it, you got your fertilizer, and you can grow some live food. You can go to a community garden. You can get to know the people there, volunteer your time. You'll learn some skills. Go to a farmer's market, get to know the people that grow your food. Give them some of your time. You will learn valuable, barterable skills, and you'll grow your community.
That's phenomenal advice, particularly because you said it's in a city. Personally, myself, I am in Manchester, living in an apartment, so that message is that message is directly for me. I also heard from a friend at church that you could use coffee grinds as fertilizer. You soak it and you use it in the soil as well. Supposedly that's effective too.
Coffee grinds are very acidic. So for certain things like strawberries and for roses and for things like that, they're great. It may or may not work for general things because it could have a little bit of acid. It's more acidic. But a nice fish tank and that fish poop water, when you clean out that fish tank, that's good stuff.
Okay.
That's very good stuff, actually.
I mean, I wouldn't have found out unless you had told me. So thank you very much.
Another thing that you can do, especially when you're in a small space and you're really constricted with what you have the ability to grow, is there are broccoli sprouting seeds, which is arguably the single most nutritious thing on the planet. And you can keep a packet of them that, little in your freezer. You rinse them off for 3 days and you have fresh food. So if you have rice and beans, that's a complete protein. And then you have those broccoli sprouts. I'm telling you, there are ways to make sure that you can eat, and it's important for everybody to do it, regardless of whether or not you have the land or the circumstance. Community gardens in big cities, and understanding as well what plants are edible, what we think of as weeds like purslane, like dandelions. I mean, there's actually quite a few. Oh, yeah, dandelions. Wow. Oh, yeah, they are highly nutritious. The leaves you can eat as salad, and the roots you can make into a tea. So understanding inside of a city what you can actually go out and utilize as food that other people just would not be aware of, which is, there's actually a lot of food. And I think it's really important to know how to forage, not just in the country, but maybe even more important when you are in a city, because you can go into a park and you can pick and not realize, people won't realize what you're doing, but you can feed your family if you understand what is nutritious and what is edible. There are a lot of edible flowers too. Pansies are edible. Nasturtium are edible. There's lots of things out there. And let me tell you, when you're hungry, you need to know these things.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you only have the peace. It's best to do it when you have peace of mind, especially now, because when it's chaotic, you're not really thinking about these things, are you?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what about energy? Because, fuel, gas in the tank, not everyone is going to have the disposable cash. So
this is a huge problem for really a lot of people. And with what's happening in the Middle East, a lot of countries are burning through their reserves. And even here in the US, I heard some data that I don't remember exactly which day in June, but if the Strait of Hormuz is not open prior to, I think, June 20th, but don't hold me to that, then even here in the US, we will have run through our strategic reserves. Energy
Wow.
goes into everything, everything. It's not just at the gas pump. So energy is crucial. And I can tell you that that was actually solar was the first thing I did when I bought my house in the middle of the city. Didn't work very well, but my bug out location is completely off grid. So
Nice.
if the unthinkable actually happens in June or whenever the crisis gets that big, I have my whole mantra executed a couple of hours away from me. And I could even walk there if we needed to walk. Would not be a fun walk, but we could do it. It's not like 3,000 miles away. But again, food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, arguably the most important, and shelter. Get it done. Because people think they have all the time in the world, but they only have as much as they have. And quite honestly, we are riding in a bus. We know we're going to hit that wall, but everybody's got flipping blinders on. Blinders. We have no idea when we're going to hit it.
Lynette, honestly, you are one of my favorite people to interview because as soon as you talk, it's like we're of the same mind because what you just said about hitting the wall, I have in my notes. The former U.S. Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson. Have you seen his interview recently?
No.
Oh, okay.
What did that? I won't tell you what I've called him that I can't say on air.
Keep it PG. Keep it PG. No.
The name was PG, but everybody would understand what I'm saying. That's why I won't say it.
Oh, right. Okay, no problem. Right. So in April last month, he recently came out to say that the US will need an emergency break the glass solution for when the US hits the wall. Now he was referring to, the Fed being the only buyer of US treasuries. He said it explicitly. We need a plan. Have you seen it?
I have seen that. Yes. Okay. I just thought it was more recent than that. Yeah.
Oh no, it was that one. And he explicitly said when, not if, when.
Mm-hmm.
And just when you said, "Oh, you need a plan for when it hits the wall," it's like for years we've been saying it. People have been saying it, and it seems like we're getting closer and closer with each passing year. And I was just wondering, could this be what the stablecoin pushes for? Because we know they'll be backed by Treasury. So is this what the solution would be?
100%. 100%. What this administration is attempting to do is the same thing that the administration in the 70s did with the petrodollar to create a new system to maintain the debt levels. And since the last time you and I spoke, the Fed had been running off their balance sheet, but boy, that stopped.
Yep,
they've got lifted off again. I mean, hello. So yes, 100%. That's what the Stablecoin Act was about. It answered the question as to what was going to justify new money creation, which in the current system, it's debt. In the new system, it's purchases and debt. Take your pick. So yes, it's not when, because the debt levels are already, the interest on the debt is going up exponentially. It's going up in a straight line, right? But that's been true for a long time where we've been compounding interest. Yeah. If you have a credit card and you're not paying all of that interest, let alone any of the principal, and so there's some of that interest is left. You've made the minimum payment and that interest now goes into the principal. And now you're paying interest on top of interest, on top of interest, on top of it. You don't even have to spend any more money and your principal balance is going to grow and grow and grow. And that's where we are. It's not that it's not sustained. It's not payable. This is why we have to have a hyperinflationary event so that this debt that is not payable gets paid off with currencies that have zero value. And I'm not 100% convinced that the U.S. even wants to maintain the position that we've had in the world as the leader, because I've been watching too many things that have shifted the alliances that we have, right? That's going to be tested here soon. But do I trust any of them? No, I really don't trust any of it, but I do trust the others that are in my community. I do trust you, right? I do
Thank you.
trust Tom. I do trust, you know, because at the end of the day, we can come together to help each other.
Yeah.
We can't count on the government to do it. You can count on the FDIC to go, oh, too bad, so sad. Nope, you can't have your money back. You can count on the hedge funds saying, oh, too bad, so sad. Nope, no, you don't get to use this. Or the bail-in from the banks. We can trust them to put their best interest first because they are the ones that wrote the contracts. And they did not write any of these contracts in your best interest. They wrote them so that you look at this big book of little itty bitty fine print and you really want that mortgage. Okay, I'll sign. I want the house. I'll sign it. Well, they have you by the cojones, don't they?
Mm-hmm. I mean, even if you pay off the whole mortgage, you're stuck with property taxes, so it's still not yours technically.
Exactly. And what's happening with property taxes? I mean, it's a genius system. They inflate the value of the house, and then they get to charge you more tax on that inflated value. Where do governments get their income? Through taxation. Part of the strategy, big part of the strategy, is to help you pay that mortgage off, boom, and especially make sure that you can always pay those property taxes. Because to your point, you're absolutely right. You can have that house paid off. But if you can't pay the property taxes, you lose the house.
Yeah. And actually, when I think about it, it links back to the WF. You'll own nothing and be happy, because lots of people now think they own their homes, but when this hyperinflation comes, they're going to be, they're going to be rudely surprised when they find, the government knocking on their door saying, "Well, you haven't paid your taxes. Hand over the keys."
Well, and you even think, even before we get there, think about what happened in 2008. Now, the government went in, dropped interest rates down to support the real estate market that dropped about 45%, right? Well, wait a minute. If they're counting on the income from the higher valuations in the house for those property taxes, if the value of the house drops, then that means that they have less income coming in. So what they did was they targeted real estate for reflation because it's such a large part of the global economy. Country to country, yes, but on a global basis, even more so. So it's not that the government actually wants to own the houses. It's not even that the banks want to own the houses, but they do want to own all of the assets because then they can leverage those assets. Hence tokenization and other things that they're doing to expand the equity that they have access to. But really, they'd rather you take the risk. They don't really want to take the risk. They want you to take it.
Yeah. And I mean, within that Labour's plan for financial services that I talked about previously, one of their aims within it, there's another section for tokenization, and they said the aim is to make the UK a global hub for securities tokenization. A global hub, meaning this is a worldwide thing. It's not just America. It's not just the UK. It's a global thing. Why? I mean, at this point, I just keep asking why. What more could they possibly want from us?
They want everything. You have some degree of freedom. You still have some degree of choice. But that doesn't benefit them if you make a different choice than the one they want you to make. So if you can be in a position that you have to do whatever it is that they want, well, now they have 100% control and they own everything. We're back in feudal times.
It does feel like that's where we're heading.
Well,
It really
I mean,
does feel
that's the
like it.
stated goal. I mean, they don't actually say feudal times, but they want the small group to own everything, and then everybody else has to rent everything. And you even think about, you get a new car. Like I was recently gone for a few weeks, and so my daughter, who's really into, they have an automotive shop, and so she's really into it, and she
Right.
borrowed my car for a while, and while I was gone, she's like, boy, your car is really, it has all of these bells and whistles on it, which I had to pay for and I never use, and I never will use them. But you get used to that backup camera. What happens when they do a subscription on that backup camera now?
Tesla's been doing it, I think, for some of their services.
That's the direction that they've been testing and that we're heading in, where you just have a handful of people that, or entities that own everything, and then we have to rent everything, including with tokenization, the clothes on our backs, the things that so far, and think about it for the banking system, right? The city of London, it was kind of notorious on a global basis for hypothecation, rehypothecation, which means that the when you make a deposit into the bank, or you're in a brokerage account and you have your stocks and bonds and ETFs and all of that stuff, right? Your perception is that you actually own something. But the legal reality is that you don't own any of it, that you have loaned that to the bank, to whether it's a securities or whatever, any kind of entity, you have loaned them that equity. And then in turn, they get to use that equity and borrow for their benefit and go out and trading, and which is how most of the banks make most of their money, is through trading, right? It's not through lending. It's not what we think. The problem is that when those trades go south in a rather big way, like they did in 2008, who suffered? Nobody went to jail. The guys that created this, not one of them went to jail because they didn't do anything illegal, because they're the ones that wrote the contracts. I do believe some demonstrators went to jail. And there are people that are still dealing with the backlash from 2008, and there are socialist movements that have grown out of that. But here's the thing: I didn't have a big enough voice when 2008 happened and the Occupy Wall Street movement happened. I wish I did, because what I saw was they were fighting for the wrong thing. They didn't know what they were fighting for, right? This was a currency life cycle issue, but they didn't understand that. And so the socialist movements that have grown out of that are about rent control and things like that. It's not, how about money control, right? How about money control? Rent control is garbage. It doesn't mean anything. So that's why, it's a bigger and bigger and bigger battle that I am fully committed to and prepared to fight to get that redeemable gold. And it has to be redeemable. And from the bottom up, working with the states to get gold and silver as legal tender again without taxation. There's some things that are happening with it. But honest to God, the only way that we can make it happen is if the public makes it happen.
And the thing is, we can all do it today if we just convert a percentage. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. You don't have to go out and liquidate all your assets, but just put some of it into gold and silver. Claim your freedom back. That's all it is.
It's it. Booty hooty Rudy Manuti. You own gold and silver. Why? Exactly. I don't understand why that's a bad thing. I just
and to us, it seems so simple, but like Kenneth said in the live yesterday, perception management with the spot contracts, they make it seem very volatile. It's like, oh no, it's risky, but the risk is holding the fiat currency.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm going to continue to try to figure out how to explain it, how to show it. I will never stop doing that. I will never
Same
stop
here.
doing that.
Same here. And you mentioned just then about it being redeemable, the currency. In your opinion, would it be fine if the digital currencies are redeemable?
If it's redeemable, I'm okay with it. If it's
Okay.
not redeemable, it doesn't mean anything. Look at
Okay.
Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe recently are trying to turn the clock back with their land program because guess what? It didn't work. And the public is not trusting them and the currency. They can't get the public's trust back. But then again, Zim Gold is not in physical form at all. It's not
Yeah.
redeemable. If it's not
Yeah.
redeemable, it doesn't mean anything.
And Peter Schiff is working on something interesting in that space. He's called it T Gold, which unfortunately sounds similar to, Tether. But he's working on his own version where it's a stable coin that's backed by gold. And I believe it's redeemable. You can spend it like you would gold. So maybe it's worth looking into that one. Hopefully it enters the mainstream, but you know.
Well, it must be redeemable, period, end of discussion. If it's not, for me, if it's not redeemable,
Because you can see the use cases with
Mhm.
a public ledger. You can see that the inventories are there. We can't trust the COMEX, unfortunately, and the CME, but with it being stable coins, you can see the ledger. The whole public can see it, can't you?
Well, maybe. I mean, and I say that because I am not an engineer, let alone a specific kind of engineer that would understand all of
Yeah.
that coding. And I am just not convinced that they couldn't write a code in there and be robbing from me at a level that I just can't see it, just like inflation, right?
That's
They
fair.
could go out
That's fair.
further. So I don't trust it. I don't trust it. I can see a place for for digital gold that's redeemable, like Glint or Kinesis, right? Because
Mhm.
that's on top of a MasterCard. So it does make online transactions and day-to-day transactions easier. So I can see a certain amount going in
Yeah.
there. Not familiar with what Peter is doing, so I can't really speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I recently started using Glint as my alternative to because I've pretty much been stacking the physical, but because the price has gone high, the premiums are a bit extraordinary at the moment. So I've been using Glint as the alternative for me. So every month I just put a certain amount in there, and it's been working quite nicely to be fair. So can't
Good.
complain.
That's not the only place to accumulate. And if you've got those premiums, it's because of the difference between physical demand and
Yeah.
supply. And you brought up the COMEX, and there's been it's quite interesting to see. You saw it yesterday, right? There's a lot, people are standing, or entities, whoever it is standing for delivery, physical delivery. And so the inventories of what's deliverable is going down in a rather big way, regardless of what's happening with the spot market, which I mean, that's just so easy to manipulate. So
Yeah.
easy.
I mean, it's there are about 300 contracts to one physical ounce of silver. Once that gets resolved, oh, there will be fireworks. There will be
Oh,
some real
and we are
fireworks.
definitely headed there. I mean,
Yeah,
this is really what we're seeing, and I really appreciate that a lot. I'm excited about that.
same here. Same here. Lynette, tell the people where they can find you, particularly your work with the board for, is it the
Citizen,
board for, there you go, go on.
it's Citizens for Sound Money. I sit on the board. That is a global movement to get sound money gold, redeemable gold, if it's my druthers, back in the global monetary system again. But I'm very active on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Zang, INTL. And of course, I'm all over the place. I'm trying to get the word out as much as possible, but I'm pretty easy to find. You can always search me and I'll come up.
Will you be at Rick's symposium next month? Because I watched something where both of you were doing a podcast and he invited you on. So will you be?
I'll you if Rick asks me to come, yes, I'll, and I believe that is in July.
Yes, July, sorry. But yeah, I'm an affiliate for it. I won't be there in person because I'm in
Oh,
the UK, but I'll be online, so I'll be
oh,
watching. I'll be watching.
that's too bad. Why don't you come on over?
Yeah, I mean visa requirements. You know it's tough now, isn't it? So
Mhm.
hopefully one day when there's more liberty, we can
Well,
make
we
it
can
happen.
we can make that happen if we come together in community. You know, I know it may sound outrageous to people, but the truth of the matter is together we can do anything. The whole plan is divide and conquer. My whole plan is let's all come together and make it happen. We have to do that. And I know we can. There's not one doubt in my mind about it.
Amen. And I will leave it on that point. Thank you very much, Lynette, for your time.
Oh, my pleasure.